They called it a war. But that's not quite precise. It wasn't Edison against Tesla. It was system against system. Alternating current against direct current. People didn't understand electricity. They only knew it could kill. Edison knew this. Fear cells. He electrocuted animals in public demonstrations. A horse, dogs, even an elephant, if I recall correctly. The present is theirs. The future, for which I really worked, is mine. I am Nikola Tesla, and this is my autobiologue. Hello. Most of you know me only as an ending, an old inventor, a name on a patent, a photograph with tired eyes. So let us begin there, since that is where you found me. The New Yorker Hotel, 33rd floor, room 3327. A Do Not Disturb sign had been on the door for 2 days. If you have ever stood in a hotel corridor at dawn, you know the feeling carpet swallowing footsteps. Air too still. A quiet that listens back. That was the silence around my door in January of 1943. When they finally opened it, the matter was already simple. My heart had stopped. Later, a physician gave it a tidy name, coronary thrombosis. A clot, he said. A small thing, ending a large machine. And that was that. The mechanism failed. You see, the newspapers called me miserable. They painted a portrait. The old inventor. Alone. Penniless. Feeding pigeons from his window tragic, they said. Mad, they whispered. But permit me to correct the record. I was not miserable. I was alone, yes. Old, certainly. Poor by their measure of wealth. But misery, that requires self-pity, and I confess I had none. I lived as I chose. I worked until my hands could no longer hold the tools. The pigeons knew me. So do not mourn the scene they found. Mourn instead what was lost in those final years, the work left unfinished. But the real question is this. How did I get to that room? That is the story worth telling. How does a man who lit the world end up alone in a hotel room? It's a chain to unravel. Not a success story, something more tangled. Perhaps you've asked yourself the same. How did I end up here? I confess, I talk too much. Let me be precise. There's a sound in my memory, an electrical hum, faint but constant. Do you hear it? That sound takes me back. Not to the hotel, but to the beginning. To a boy in a mountain village who first heard that hum inside his own head. They say I was born at midnight during a thunderstorm. July 10th, 1856. Smiljan in the mountains. Lightning struck as I entered the world. The midwife said, "A child of the storm." My mother corrected her, "No, of light." It's a fine story. People love to repeat it. But prophecies, you see, are often just family fear or hope dressed as destiny. What matters is not what they said about me, but what I remember myself. My memory is this. One day, someone vanished from the house. My brother, Dane. There was a horse, an accident. Perhaps I was 5, perhaps 7. The detail fades, the feeling remains. Death does not ask for explanation at that age. It simply settles in. And then the house is no longer the same house. I will not romanticize it. I did not learn a lesson that day. I did not extract a meaning. A child does not interpret loss. He carries it. And what you carry changes shape as you grow. After that, my mind began to work in a strange way. Words became images too vivid, too real. If someone said funeral, I would see the candles, the grain of the wood, the dust floating in the church light. Sometimes the image spilled into the room I was standing in, as if I were still there. For a time I thought it was only pain. Then I understood this. Pain either breaks the mind, or it imposes a discipline upon it. I took refuge in discipline. because I had no other refuge. Later, people called it genius. I never liked that word. For me, it was a child's survival habit. That is all. Most of what I can tell you about my childhood is that the rest is silence. And it is more honest to leave some things silent. But silence does not remain empty inside a person. The mind tries to turn that emptiness into order. Threes and their multiples. People call it mysticism. For me, it was only an attempt at control, to divide pain into numbers, to make it portable. And then years passed. Childhood ended. But that hunger for order did not. The images in my mind began to carry not only loss, but the world. I could see how something worked, where emotion connected, where a contact point wore down. Sometimes, before I even touched a machine, I could almost hear its flaw and insect fine vibration, an error leaking through the metal. Perhaps that is why, wherever I went, I returned to the same obsession, waste. Energy becoming noise. Time surrendered to friction. Direct current always felt like that to me. Not like an idea, like a struggle. Brushes scraping, commutator segments striking, copper heating, the air tasting of ozone. Light, yes. But at a price, the endless quarrel of mechanical contact. And I do not love quarrels. I wanted a nature that runs quietly, continuously. Rotation that arises from the principle itself. No, let me say it more plainly. I could not accept a machine that fought itself. That is why the motor was never merely engineering to me. It was a kind of ethics, turning human effort into sparks. The mind does that too, when it is in pain. As a child, I saw how suffering becomes waste, so I did not forgive waste in energy. February 1882, Budapest. I was walking with my friend Shijdi through the park at sunset. The light was gold, filtering through the trees. I was reciting Gert Faust. For weeks there had been the same pressure inside me, the motorer. But the heart of the motor, the field, could not be condemned to the harsh habit of direct current. And then I saw it. Not a metaphor. Complete, rotating in my mind. A magnetic field turning without mechanical contact. In polyphase current, the field almost seems to begin turning by itself. No brushes, no commutator. The principle is simple. Alternating currents, shifted in phase, produce a rotating field, and the rotor follows like water follows a whirlpool. I stopped walking. Drew the design in the dirt with a stick. Shijdi thought I had lost my senses, but I knew it would work, because I had already seen it working inside that quiet workshop of the mind. Now I had to prove it to the world. To prove it to the world, I had to leave Europe. I boarded a ship and arrived in New York in 1884. My luggage was lost between the ship and the shore. My money stolen or simply vanished. I never learned which. It didn't matter. The motor existed in my mind, where no thief could reach it. The harbor smelled of coal smoke and oil and rain. The crowd never paused. Noise, smoke, wire, hurry. This city didn't think. It ran. In Europe, we had built with deliberation, with time to consider. America was speed, chaos, pragmatism in motion. I was exhilarated and uneasy at once, like standing too close to spinning gears. I found the door, Edison Machine Works. Knocked. The collision was inevitable. Edison, Thomas Alva Edison. I met him that first week. He was tired but driven, always moving, always testing, hands stained with grease and lampblack. Two men from different worlds, you see? Edison believed in making things work today. I believed in making them work forever. No, blaming him is easy. Let me be more precise. The system made him this way. America rewarded speed. Investors wanted results by morning. Edison gave them results. I offered them principles, and principles take time to prove. I needed to think. They needed to run. These are incompatible rhythms. There's a saying I learned later. Running a machine is easy. Running it without waste, That requires character. Edison ran his machines. I designed mine to eliminate the need for running them poorly in the first place. You understand the difference? It's not technical, it's moral. Efficiency is a form of respect. For energy, for resources, for the future. Speed is expedience. Expedience serves the moment, not the century. I confess, this made me difficult to employ. And then there was the money thing. They promised me $50,000 to redesign their generators. I did the work. The money never came. Edison laughed, called it a joke. An American joke, he said. I didn't find it amusing. I didn't understand American humor then. I confess, I still don't. What would you have felt? A promise to me was a mechanism, precise, binding, like a gear that must turn exactly as designed. To them, it was flexible, negotiable. For a year, I dug ditches to survive. Manual labor. $2 a day. The irony was not lost on me. The man who could light cities, digging holes in the ground. Then someone said, "We can build this." George Westinghouse. Not the money that mattered. Though there was money, a contract for my patents and royalties on every motor sold. What mattered was the courage. He believed the rotating field could work. He believed me. But now mistakes were no longer just mine. If the motor failed in Pittsburgh, it failed publicly. The burden shifted from my mind to a factory floor, to men I'd never met, building what I could only see. In truth, that terrified me. But I learned something then. Sometimes you let go so it can spread. The work becomes larger than one person's control. Pause, and that's when it stopped being my project. It became a fight for order my system against Edison's chaos. The war had begun. They called it a war, but that's not quite precise. It wasn't Edison against Tesla. It was system against system, alternating current against direct current. People didn't understand electricity. They only knew it could kill. Edison knew this. Fear cells. He electrocuted animals in public demonstrations. A horse, dogs, even an elephant, if I recall correctly. Each time, he told the crowd, "This is what alternating current does." He said my system was dangerous. His was safe. But consider the principle. Direct current loses power over distance. You need a power station every mile. Alternating current travels hundreds of miles with minimal loss. One station can serve a city. Which system wastes less? Which serves the future? I learned this then. Sometimes a technology's fate is decided not in the lab, but by the crowd's emotions. Not by what works best, but by what frightens least. The question became, would fact prevail over fear? It did, at Niagara Falls. The sound of falling water has a rhythm, you see. Constant, powerful. For me, this was nature's order made visible. Water turning turbines, turbines generating alternating current, current traveling hundreds of miles to light cities. Fear went silent that day. Proof spoke. When you turn on a light in your home today, in 2026, what flows from your outlet? That order is in it. The principle I saw in Budapest, the system that won at Niagara. But then something curious happened. People called me a wizard, a magician. Because when you create order, outsiders think it's a miracle. They don't see the work. They see the flash. They want mystery, not mechanism. And I confess that praise became my next prison. 1895. My laboratory on South 5th Avenue. The fire started in the basement. I wasn't there. By the time I arrived, the building was burning. Walls, roof, everything. But a city burns, a person burns. The quietest burning is notebooks. Years of work. Proof. Labor. Time itself turned to smoke. I stood on the street and watched it collapse. The smell of burning wood and copper wire. Winter air mixing with heat. People gathered to watch, the way they always do when something falls apart. No, I won't dramatize this. It happened. This was simply the necessity of starting over. But permit me to ask you, if your years burned in one night, what would you do? Would you begin again? Could you? I had no choice. The motor existed. The principles were sound, but now I carried them only in my mind again. No instruments, no records, no proof. And so the question became, if people don't believe, how do you carry proof forward? How do you prove what only you can see? I built proof again. Madison Square Garden, 1898. A pool filled with water, a crowd, a small boat floating on the surface. I controlled it from a distance. No wires, no strings. The boat turned left, right, stopped, started. All from a transmitter in my hand. The crowd erupted. "Magic!" someone shouted. Others looked for the man hidden inside. "It's a trick." I confessed. Their wonder exhausted me. No, no trick. Just the transport of command through invisible waves. Wireless control. You call it by different names now. Remote. Drone. The principle remains the same. But standing there, watching them marvel, a new question arose in me. When humans control power from a distance, do they also distance their conscience? Can you destroy what you cannot see? Can you kill what you do not touch? That question haunted me for years. So I did what I always did. I worked. 1899. Colorado Springs. High altitude, thin air, night sky vast and clear. I went there to listen to the earth. Not mystically, scientifically. Observe this. The earth itself can act like a circuit. Vibrations travel through it, echoing like sound through a bell. If you strike the right frequency, the resonance amplifies. I built a laboratory on the prairie. At night, the air smelled of ozone after each discharge. Lightning danced between my coils in the sky. I was tuning an instrument the size of a planet. The principle is simple. Wireless transmission of power across any distance. Not through wires, through the earth itself. Once you understand this, the question becomes, where do I build it? Where do I prove it at scale? I found the place, Long Island, Wardenclyffe. And I found the money. J.P. Morgan was told yes. The project, as I described it to him, was clear transatlantic wireless communication, ship-to-shore messaging, practical, profitable, proven in principle by Marconi's work. Morgan understood that language. Utility, monopoly, return on investment. But every yes has an ownership beneath it. You see, I wanted to connect the world. Capital wanted to hold the ends of what you connect. Do you understand the difference? One wishes to liberate, the other to charge for passage. I confessed I believed I could do both. Build the communication system first, then, once operational, expand it. Wireless transmission of power, free energy to anyone with a receiver. The world system. I thought if I built it, the logic would speak for itself. Efficiency over profit, order over waste. No, let me be precise. I knew Morgan would resist, but I believed the principle would win once demonstrated. That assumption proved costly, because what I was building on Long Island wasn't just a tower. It was a choice. Do you liberate the river, or do you build the dam and sell the water? I chose liberation. Morgan chose the dam. The tower rose. 187 feet of steel and wood, visible for miles across Long Island. Not a monument, a spine. A station that would speak with the earth, connecting nations without cables strung across ocean floors. The stated goal, global wireless communication. Ship-to-shore messaging. News transmitted instantly. A practical system. Then Marconi succeeded, sent a signal across the Atlantic. The world's race accelerated. I had to expand the project, prove my system was superior. The costs grew. Morgan sent word, no more money. Where is the profit? He asked. The tower rose halfway, then stopped. Workers left. Silence, you see, weighs more than construction. It settles into the bones differently. I stood beneath it many nights, looking up at what remained unfinished. So you see the chain now. As a child, I lost someone. My mind found order. With Edison, I saw speed. I wanted principle. With Westinghouse, idea became industry. Niagara silenced fear. Fire silenced proof. The wireless dream led to the tower. The tower stopped. I didn't arrive at that room in a day. This was a long current's end. Each choice, each loss, each principle, they accumulated like voltage across a circuit until the charge had nowhere left to go. The New Yorker hotel became the final node. But let me speak now not as the man in that room, but to you in 2026. You have what I envisioned, wireless transmission, not of energy as I had hoped, but of information, which may prove more dangerous. I say to you, as power grows, conscience must grow with it. I carried a command across distance with a boat. You carry everything across distance, ideas, orders, destruction. Carry responsibility too. The question I asked in Madison Square Garden remains, when you control from a distance, does your conscience also distance itself? Can you destroy what you cannot see? Can you ignore what you do not touch? My story is not one man's failure or triumph. It is the question every age must ask itself. Hitherto, have we used our tools wisely, or have we merely made waste more efficient? Power without conscience is not progress. It is merely speed toward collapse. So permit me to return to where we began. I built first in my mind, then on paper, then in steel. You build first in yours. What world do you want? Because the future is not just inventions, it is intentions. The tools exist. The order exists. The current flows through your walls at this very moment. But what you do with that current, that remains your choice, as it was mine. Listen to that hum again. Electricity is invisible, so is conscience, but both run the world. I died in that room believing my greatest work remained unfinished. Perhaps it does. Perhaps you are the one who finishes it, not by building towers, but by asking, before you act, does this create order or does this create waste? That question is the only legacy that matters.